For those with good taste.
What is up, tasties and tastettes? Welcome back to another movie review. It's your boy Lenny, joined again, as always, my producer extraordinaire,
Dante.
Welcome to the show, Dante. Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. This week we're talking Kraven the Hunter, Sony's long-awaited final film in its character spin-offs of all bad guys trying to be good guys. That's been really confusing.
Long awaited?
Yeah. I mean, we got a million trailers. Waiting for him to get over. Waiting to be done with them. And if you're waiting to be done with this podcast, you know what you got to do first? Hit the like button, drop a comment, and sub to the channel so you can come back and hate watch some more. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Let's kick it off with some trivia, shall we, Dante?
We shall.
So I said long awaited, and you picked up on that. This movie was completed for more than 3.5 years now.
Oh.
Prior to its release. They faced a multitude of issues in production, one of which being the biggest being the writer's strike that pushed this movie back significantly. It was supposed to originally be slated, I believe, to come out in 2023, and it kept getting pushed back.
Damn.
No excuse for poor filmmaking, but tough thing to overcome, especially for a movie. It's like a movie that people already don't really care about, and then to have it continually pushed back. I just don't know that you were going to get people. You weren't going to gain fans doing that.
I don't know how many people were even aware that it was pushed back since nobody was waiting for it.
I think people who are paying attention to comic book stuff maybe are, but yeah, to your point, like the common fan and the thing that makes these movies successful financially didn't care.
Yeah.
And wasn't excited for it at all, which is a bummer because this is the first time that we've gotten Kraven the Hunter in a major motion picture. There's been several times that he's been rumored to have been making appearances, dating all the way back to Sam Raimi, who made the first Spider-Man trilogy, was considering using him for the fourth Spider-Man as a villain. Flash forward, there was conversations about using him in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which, if we remember, was one of the first superhero movies, I feel like, to be overloaded with villains. Because that was a movie that featured the Rhino, Jamie Foxx's Electric Man who turns blue. And it also had who was the other person in was Amazing Spider? Was it Arn the Goblin? I think the Goblin was in it. Yeah, I know you don't know. I'm just rhetorical question.
Fun fact: never watched any of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Mans.
I mean, he was really good as Spider-Man. I like him a lot. I think that's for a while was controversial. I think now it's looked back upon and been he was actually good. The movie's just the first The Amazing Spider-Man I liked, and then the second one, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I stand by the fact that I think the ending is perfectly heartbreaking in a way. Just the subtle way that they finished that movie, but everything else around it was a complete mess, and it just wasn't focused enough. There's a thing right now, and I think this movie, to get into it a little bit, suffers from it, where it's not having, if you don't have one clear defined villain, then you have none. So
yeah.
You can put as many different bad guys of note, especially in a comic book movie, for Easter egg purposes. You can throw all these little henchmen bad guys and B, C, or F tier bad guys into a movie.
But then it throws off your antagonist balance.
Yeah, you just don't then you don't really care 100% about any of them or take any of them seriously if there's no defined singular, this is the bad guy. And I think that that's something that hurts this movie. I think dating back to The Amazing Spider-Man, I think that's something that hurt it. I think going back all the way to Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire, with the weird Venom storyline, but you also have Sandman, and it was just kind of messy, I think, in that regard too. Not to mention the dancing scene, but we don't need to get into that. That was brutal. But then even getting back to Kraven, Ryan Coogler had considered featuring Kraven the Hunter in Black Panther, which I think would have been interesting with the
I think
character.
that would have helped this movie too, you know?
Yeah, like it probably wouldn't have been this version of Kraven, obviously, because he would have been designated as more of the bad guy.
No, but just knowing like how good and how well received Black Panther was, just having him as a character in that movie, no matter how small, I think would have piqued a little bit more interest for this.
Yeah, no, you're right. As far as publicity is concerned. Yeah. Because it's not like you're dealing with like, I think anybody who grew up on the animated series of Spider-Man is familiar with Kraven. Obviously, comic book fans are familiar with Kraven, but I don't think the general public, like the greater amount of people that are outside of that bubble, are nearly as aware of, of Kraven. He's just not up there as far as I feel like.
I'll say
villains.
I wasn't aware, so yeah.
Really? Okay. But I think it works with like the Black Panther, Animal, like bringing Kraven as the hunter. Like I think that's kind of a cool symbolism.
You're trying to say Simba? You thinking lions?
No, that's next week. We're talking Mufasa. No, I don't know what I'm saying. Symmetry, maybe, I don't know.
Symbiosis.
Yeah. Yep, that. And then finally, there was a thought, and they were going to use Kraven as a backup villain in Spider-Man No Way Home. If it hadn't have panned out that the multiverse stuff came to be, he was going to be like a backup plan for a character they would have written in.
Gotcha.
And I still look forward to it, the idea that Tom Holland's going to be involved in Spider-Man movies going forward, like integrating in more of these villains. I do think like that's one thing that this Sony Spider-Verse stuff, well, all of it's been pretty much a failure. It's made me sit here and go like, the one bummer about this version of Spider-Man, maybe, which has been executed really, really well, is that aside from the first movie, Homecoming, everything has been geared more towards like the Marvel vision, the universe itself. And like you have like the Tony Stark like cameos, and you have Happy involved, and you have this integration of the fallout from, spoiler alert, like Tony Stark's death, and then in No Way Home, you have Doctor Strange, and you have the multiverse stuff. And like a lot of it got away from being like focused on like the world that is Spider-Man. And like you haven't gotten these villains that you've gotten a chance to see now in the Sonyverse that like I would like to see him interact with, I don't really, maybe like a Morbius, maybe a Kraven, but definitely a Venom, right? Like there's like these characters that we would have liked to have seen him up against or involved with that we just haven't had the focus on because of the way that the MCU is constructed.
Yeah, it's like all of that stuff's running separate with Sony. And so is it something where like because Sony's using the characters, the MCU won't?
I don't know, because now you have news reports this week, and I do want to get into this, and there's not a ton of news, so like, or trivia, so we can jump into this a little bit. Some of like the missteps in the past couple weeks that I feel like in lead up to a movie that already wasn't going to be successful, that feels a lot like Sony just punted on the whole experience, which doesn't strategically make any sense to me. Why not just wait for a week or two after your movie comes out to talk about this stuff? But relation to what you're talking about, one of the things they mentioned is that there was nothing that ever said that they couldn't use Spider-Man in these movies. Like they basically were like, that's a choice that we made, saying that they didn't want to confuse their audience. But like you're making all the bad guys good. So I feel like that might be just like like entry level confusing for a lot of people who have any like moderate knowledge. And then to make these movies without featuring Spider-Man, that seems confusing too, where it's like their whole sole purpose was to be villains to Spider-Man. And this idea that like you might have been constructing a Sinister Six, but you never introduced the idea outside of Venom post-credit scenes that like Spider-Man's really even like integrated into the world at all,
which all of that they unraveled. So
yeah, and there's so many ways that they could have introduced. They could have used Tom Holland, and like the multiverse stuff could have been their excuse. I suppose they could have done that. They could have, now that that Andrew Garfield returned in the movie, they could have used him again as Spider-Man. Like they could have created a new fucking Spider-Man. Why not do Miles Morales? I don't know. Like there's a bunch of ways that if they said it was cool and you own Spider-Man, that you could have done this. Like I just don't see where you thought that it would be more beneficial from a financial standpoint. And I think what happened is Venom 1 was too successful. Like, even though like Venom 1's not the most successful movie ever, but it made money.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that made money, granted, again, like the one villain that people for them is synonymous with, Spider-Man is Venom in that character. And like and I think you still had the idea back then that like, while we could be building towards like this Tom Holland, Tom Hardy, like, fight, team up, whatever it might be. Like you had some like ambition there that you were hoping they were going after. So I think that movie was just too successful to start. And they were like, well, we can just cast recognizable actors as these villains and create stories around it, and people seem to be interested. and I think that was a big misstep. The other thing strategically that doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now is they came out and were like, yeah, so we fucked up and we're done with this version of the Spider-Verse. Like the villain verse is gone.
Yeah.
You know, we all kind of knew that. I think we knew that after Venom, and we knew that in the build up to this because like nobody cared about it and everybody was kind of mocking it. Yeah. So we all knew it. But you as like the producer, as the company that's putting this film out, to come out and admit it prior to the release of your movie seems odd. Like,
it's definitely like counterintuitive. Like you're not helping the success of your movie at all.
Yeah, I'm trying to be like a devil's advocate here and like think of a reason why they would do this. And the only reason I can come to is that they were like, we don't want people to see this movie. Right? Like we think we have such a stinker on our hands that we don't actually want anybody to go see this. So why not just kill the expectations that any person who might have been interested has by being like, there will never be a follow-up to this movie. You will never see this character again unless like somehow we, you know, I don't even know what the reason we would come back to this stuff would be.
They might as well just add it to the statement. Oh, and by the way, just don't bother even watching this one.
Well, yeah, because like that's what the statement says to me, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make a ton of sense, and I can't for the life of me figure out. I can't think of a time this has happened before where somebody's just said it. Like lie to me. Like I'm a fight fan, right? Like Dana White's lied to me a million times. I got over it. I still watch. Like I grew up on pro wrestling, dude. They told me Vince McMahon died and I saw him on the TV the next week. I would have been cool. You just tell me, man, we got a good one on our hands and we can't wait to see where this goes. We're planning on doing a team up. Like do anything you can. You're never going to be successful being an honest promoter. Like, doesn't make sense to me. It makes no sense. You know what else doesn't make sense to me? Aaron Taylor Johnson's six-pack.
I'm sorry, what now?
No, it just says here, one of the trivia pieces is Aaron Taylor Johnson's six-pack abs that were displayed prominently on the poster are real and not photoshopped. Photographer Gavin Bond, who took the original picture, confirmed saying, yes, those abs are real, and that young man put some serious hours in the gym.
Okay.
It's not trivia. That's just a Men's Fitness article.
Sounds like somebody was really getting juiced up over there.
Mm-hmm. I had one other one I feel like that I was interested in. Okay, so actually, I'll just mention this really quick. As far as the release dates for this movie, and we talked about it being pushed back, original release date was meant to be January 13th, 2023. It was delayed nearly 2 years. The first delay was all the way to go to October 6th of 2023. And then following another year-long delay, it was pushed to August 30th. And then due to the strike, it was pushed back again to December 13th.
Insane.
That's a mess.
Insane.
That's a mess. It's also really weird. I think like it's got to be weird for actors when this happens. When you then have to start promoting movies that have like been out of your consciousness for 3 years.
Yeah, when they're sitting in on these interviews and talking about the experience of filming it and stuff, and they can hardly remember.
There's that. There's like, okay, like also I know this movie sucks, and now I have to go out and promote it, even though I finished it 3 years ago, and Sony's also saying it sucks, but yet I'm out here trying to promote my film. Yeah, that's fucking ass. I'm sorry.
I mean, I feel like it also hurts it trying to release it in December as well, or not trying to, releasing it in December. Yeah, because it's around all these other big hitters that just like are going to be so much more of a draw for the box office than this.
Yeah, it only made $11 million opening weekend.
Domestic. It did 26 globally, but that still is a drop in the bucket compared to their budget.
And domestically, it was fourth, I think, in the box office against 3 other movies.
Third.
I thought Gladiator would beat it, but maybe I'm wrong. I know Wicked and Moana both defeated it soundly. Moana did like 57 million, and I forget how much Wicked did, 28 maybe.
You're overshooting.
Maybe I'm thinking worldwide then. I don't know.
Or you know what? I'm looking at... No, it is this past weekend. Yeah. Moana did 26 and Wicked did 22.
22 and a half. Okay.
And then this did 11 and Gladiator was behind it at 7.
Yeah, okay. I don't know where I got the 50. Oh, you know what it is? Total in its third weekend is 57 million. That's where I got the 57 for Moana.
Total in its third weekend?
Yeah, domestic total. In its third weekend is 57 million 26.6 million domestically, 57 million internationally, bringing its total to 717 million.
Gotcha.
So I just only read like the middle line of a 3
gotcha.
paragraph. That's not bad. Yeah. And then, okay, so Gladiator 2 did 7.8 million.
Yeah.
Still competitive on its like month out in the theater to a movie that's coming out this week. Okay. A couple other things, casting news. Originally, outside of Aaron Taylor Johnson, there was some other people they had rumored for Kraven or were attempting to get. These names are they were shooting for the fucking moon. First name on here, Brad Pitt.
They thought he was going to do it?
Second name, Keanu Reeves. Also, like, both of these men are like 50, in their 50s, and you were going to cast them in this.
Like the way they had him moving in this movie, I don't think they could have done.
And in addition to that, like the idea that, okay, getting into the story a little bit, he leaves his brother when he's a kid. And now you would have been telling me it took me all the way till he's 50 and he hasn't gotten over his issues with his dad or like anything. You know, like that would have been crazy. Like it's been 40 years since that happened.
Well, you know, Hollywood lies about ages all the time too. They would have just told him, hey, just trust us. He's actually only 28.
Well, I was going to say, because I assume Aaron Taylor Johnson in the movie's in his 30s, but in real life is probably like 40 if I had to guess.
Something around there probably.
He might be younger, but I just assume that because of the way Hollywood works, that people you think that are younger than they are.
Yeah.
It's just Hollywood magic where they're on medicine we could never obtain.
Or they found the fountain of youth.
Or they have professional chefs and they work out every day. That could also just be the realistic aspect.
He's actually 34.
Yeah, okay, so he's younger than I thought he was.
Yeah.
Good for him. So he could have been playing in his mid-20s in this. He's the same age as John B, and John B plays a 19-year-old.
John B's got a baby face, though.
Kind of, I guess. Looks kind of old these days for playing a 19-year-old. The last thing I wanted to give you a little quiz here, and I don't expect you to pass it, but
probably gonna fail.
Fun. So there's been 12 total R-rated Marvel movies that have come out. I'll give you this hint. Only one of them is within the current iteration of like the MCU.
Okay.
So most of this predates it. And I promise you know the movies. You know a few of them. I want you to name 5 out of the 12.
5 out of the 12 that are R-rated.
Yep. You very much so should get like 6 of these.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because you're probably overcomplicating it in your head.
Because in my head, I'm like, none of them got titties. So what do I go to next?
Violence.
How bad was the gore?
It's all violence. Yeah.
Okay.
And swears.
Like
there's one that's pretty easy. That's Marvel. That's got a
Deadpool.
lot of swears.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. So the one movie in the current MCU would be Deadpool Wolverine, but then you'd have Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. So that's 2 that you've got right now. 3 if we want to include the current day Marvel one. So I said you got to get 5. Can you name 2 other ones? I know that you know them. I don't know if you'll get them. There's also one that's referenced in one of the movies we were just talking about. That's the other Marvel movies.
Logan.
Yeah. Okay. So now we're at 4.
Okay.
So there's 12 total. You have...
I only need one more.
One out of... Yeah. Yeah. And to be fair, also referenced in the movies we're talking about. Almost every single one of these movies ties into Deadpool Wolverine. All but like 3 of them.
No, it can't be Fantastic Four.
No.
The Cap was in this one, so no, none of the Captain Americas were R-rated.
No. I also said it wasn't current Marvel. It's not like the MCU Marvel, but it's tied into Deadpool Wolverine. So it predates current Marvel, but they were involved in Deadpool Wolverine. I wonder if people out there know it. If you could drop the name down below, I'll know that you guessed it before Dante.
But I could be giving you the answer right now. Maybe it's one of the X-Men movies.
No, you already got the one X-Men movie. It would have been Logan.
God damn it. I'm trying to think what else they reference in this.
Weren't there characters in?
Oh, Blade.
Yeah, there you
go.
Blade 1, 2, and 3 all are in it.
Yeah, I got you.
So let us know if you got Blade before Dante did, and before I basically had to bring the horse to water.
No, come on. You only just said they were referencing this multiple times, all right? I eventually got there.
Said it, and then I was like, it's a person. And that's when you were like, oh, Blade. I thought you still might say Daredevil. Yeah, so the 12 R-rated Marvel movies, you had the one, as far as ones you didn't mention. So we had the Blade 2, and Blade Trinity. You have the Deadpool movies, you have Logan, but you also would have had the Punisher movies in there too. So you have the Punisher from 1989, you have the Punisher from 2004, and then you have Punisher Warzone from 2008. And then there's one other one I'm not familiar with called the Man-Thing from 2005. Which is a Swamp Thing movie, I guess.
That's Marvel?
Yeah, that's what it lists it here as. Not familiar with that one, but yeah. That was the last thing in trivia that I wanted to get to. Stick around till the end, though, because Dante will be playing one of his favorite games.
MFK, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, you will be.
Oh, God.
Let's get into some of the review stuff here. Let's start with the very simple question. Did you like it?
Honestly, it was kind of a fun watch.
Okay.
I don't want that to be misconstrued as me saying it's a good movie, but I think it's one of those movies that it's just so comically bad that I found myself laughing throughout it.
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this the other day in a group, and like, I don't think that
So you watched this by yourself, right?
Yeah,
and we've talked about this before. Where
it's
different when you go with people versus by yourself, as far as finding the comedy.
Well, and if the theater's like full, like this theater was, I saw it in an IMAX. I saw it in the first IMAX showing, and it was probably 10 people in the theater total when I saw it. There was one guy next to me who was super into it, but he also might have been a little off, like.
Gotcha.
You know, but he definitely seemed like he was enjoying it. I'm torn because I don't think that this is terrible. Like, I truthfully, I don't think this is terrible, but I also agree it's not good. But I don't think that it is bad enough for me to have this tremendous enjoyment that I got out of Madam Web. And I think that that's where my issue lies here.
Where you're saying it's not terrible, I think it just comes down to like any movie with this kind of budget, with this kind of studio behind it. Of course, there's going to be good parts of it, like good things about it.
Well, but we go back to Madam Web or like a movie like Morbius, and it's like, that's not always true. But, you know, the thing about like Madam Web was I inherently enjoyed the numerous like mistakes and like everything. Here's one thing that those two movies share. The dialogue between Madam Web and this movie are like combined to be the worst. Like, it's AI scripting, and it truthfully makes no sense that movies can cost this much money and they
look this bad,
have this poor of scripting
in
it. Like, and then on top of the scripting being really bad, the ADR is just like terrible.
There's a scene in specific that like really like took me out of the movie, and I was just like, holy shit. It was a scene when and I won't spoil anything, but him and the girl were talking, and when she was talking, it almost looked like her face was AI generated because her mouth was not moving naturally.
Yeah, well, isn't that like, so they probably used like a TikTok filter.
Yeah, to like make her mouth look like it was talking. They probably wanted to change the lines and didn't want to reshoot or something. I don't know what it was, but it just completely did not match the words to the mouth.
Oh, it feels like a large part of this movie was just ADR, which is extremely confusing to be like, did you write a whole new script after you did the movie? like what I don't get it necessarily.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't.
At least Madam Web had the excuse where like the main issue with that guy talking, he didn't really speak great English. So like they had to, right?
Yeah. I mean, they didn't have to. They just didn't have to cast that guy.
Fair.
Like have to implies they didn't have a choice. I think the common theme through all of these movies, including like the Morbiuses, and I will include like especially Venom 3, but also the other Venom movies, is like they didn't have to do any of this. They made movies that were objectively bad that anybody with a brain who was watching them making them knew were going to be bad. Like I refuse to believe that Russell Crowe was doing this movie and wasn't saying to himself, like, why did I sign up for this? Like, and he tries. I think both him and Aaron Taylor Johnson try.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think either one of them had necessarily terrible
They took it about as
performance.
seriously as they could.
Yeah. Like, they, like, you know, and maybe for Russell Crowe, it was like, I get to throw on an accent and, like, I can do this kind of acting, like the like angry, like stern speaking role he can kind of do in his sleep. If you watched, especially recently in his career, was it like Unhinged, I think, is the movie where he has road rage, like feels kind of similar in terms of tonally how he was acting in this movie.
Not familiar with that one. But,
yeah, you don't have to be.
I will say I enjoyed the accent.
Yeah, and he didn't like. I feel like a lot of times with that, and he's a good actor, so he's not going to do this. But you have those times where like the accent comes and goes.
Oh yeah,
and
where
like,
it gets thicker or thinner.
Yeah, he seemed pretty consistent for the dialogue that he was given.
He held a pretty thick accent, but he held it consistently.
Yeah, through the whole thing. The one like plus I'll give this movie as far as my viewing experience, and you guys didn't seem to pick up on this. It was. I found myself there, like, so where were they lion hunting?
Somewhere in Africa, I think.
So, like, when they were out there and it was nighttime for one of the scenes, I think it's the scene after he bullies the son, and then he goes into the tent with him, like the two brothers are in the tent talking, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
I loved the effect of the audio in that scene, and it really like stood out to me because I think me and you, a lot of the times if we go to a Braintree theater, we sit in the back of the theater, and I think one downside is a lot of the times I lose rear audio.
Well, it's just like you don't get that separation of the audio.
It's not as immersive.
Meshed together.
Yeah, it's not as immersive. Like it takes a really distinct sound for me to really pick up on the rear speakers because we're sitting like directly underneath them.
Yeah.
So sitting dead center of the theater for this movie, I really appreciated that. Like I could hear bugs like chirping and stuff like that
off in multiple directions.
Yeah, in my rear audio, and like I felt like that was super immersive, and I was really happy with that particular part to where I took note of it, and I was like, wow, like this, I love this experience of like feeling like you're there with them while this conversation's happening. That's like the only positive I can really give it from an effects standpoint, but I really appreciated that in particular. I was like, this is nice.
Okay.
This
I didn't pick up on that in that scene, and I think I was probably too busy, like just roped in with Russell Crowe's accent.
Yeah. Like it was definitely a very minor thing, but I do want to say like that's something I enjoyed from this movie. The stuff I kind of referenced before though, the messy villain thing, like there's no dominant villain. I think there is a supposed to be dominant villain in this movie to a point.
Yeah.
But in all actuality, you have 4 villains in this movie. Really?
1, 2, 3.
There's one late in the movie as well. Like that turns in, like you
yeah.
So, and I just don't remember the trailer to know 100% what's involved here. But like, it just is like, you don't like these characters, but like none of them feel up to the task of being like the premier villain, like you're introduced to a guy when they're younger who you can tell is the start of their villain arc. But then you're also like, well, the dad, Russell Crowe, seems like he'd be the villain. Right. And then they introduce like a mercenary essentially.
Yeah.
That's supposed that not only is just a mercenary hired because like he has a certain skill set to go after Kraven, but then they also have to be like, well, he has personal reasons like for why he doesn't like why it's so important to him to kill Kraven, you know, and it's tough when you're introducing a character for the first time, but then trying to give me like a backstory where he has this guy who's hated him because he's been going after this list for however long. And I think the other part of it is like, I remember Kraven from like the Spider-Man cartoons, but I don't remember if he ever had like the list. Like to me, that is synonymous with Oliver Queen in like the first season of Arrow or first couple seasons of Arrow. So like that, I was like, is this an actual storyline of his? Am I crazy? And like, this was lifted from somewhere else. But yeah, I just didn't necessarily buy in to the multiple villain idea. And it was on top of the fact that like the villains were trying to kill each other too. So it's like the whole thing is just it was
a free for all.
Yeah. It's like a mess of like directions that you're taking it. And then you take away like what I was saying is where you don't build up to any real pure villain. Like I guess the one you're happy to see their comeuppance is Russell Crowe. He's probably the most significantly built throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's long gaps where he's not involved in
Huge
the movie
gaps,
at all. Like, so then it's like, yeah, he's probably the character you dislike the most and you have the most reason to see the comeuppance from. But at the same time, you see him so little that it doesn't feel that
it's because they put too many villains, so they couldn't really build a story behind all of them where they should have just picked one.
And the issue is that the father isn't the only way he was going to be able to stand up to the powers, and we haven't even gotten into the powers that they gave Kraven. But the only way they could have him evenly matched up was being the manipulator, right? Like, because physically he was never going to be able to stand up to him. And I think you got that little scene where he goes to like hit him. And he's like, we're not playing that game anymore. You know, grabs his hand and is just like, I could beat the shit out of you if I chose to. The only reason you get a pass is because you're my dad.
Yeah.
You know? So then they were like, well, if he can't be the one to fight him, we need to introduce a villain that we feel like can stand toe to toe with him. So then we introduced the Rhino, and you're like, but then the Rhino doesn't even stand toe to toe with him. Like the Rhino, you don't have like, you have one fight, like the whole, he
just keeps sending people.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy who could take him.
Yes, you'd assume he's the like, you know, and then I said this to you guys, you have the hypnotizing guy,
the foreigner.
Yeah. Terrible villain name. And maybe we're getting a little too into spoilers, but at the same time, you didn't see the movie, so who fucking cares? He beats the shit out of like Kraven. So like that fight, he's the most formidable fighter because he's smart and has like a skill set that eliminates a lot of what like Kraven brings to the table and manipulates him. And we get like maybe the worst scene in the movie to me, which is the spider scene. Like, I think that is above and beyond. Like, it's the same shit in Madam Web, where it's like, you guys chose not to put Spider-Man in these movies, but then in Madam Web, we have that one scene where like the spider drops down right into the center frame, and you're like, oh, like there it is.
I see what we're doing here.
And in this movie, it's like, well, what's Kraven's biggest fear? A million spiders. You're like, all right, dude, like just leave Spider-Man out of it if you're not gonna fucking use him. Like, this is stupid. But the biggest threat to Kraven in this whole movie, Kraven doesn't even kill. So like, he kind of looks like a bitch to me for that too, where it's like, you're supposed to be tough as fuck, you're beating everything up, but then this one guy is smart and he's the one who fucks you up. And even like, he got manipulated intelligence wise by his father too. But he's supposed to be like, part of being the greatest hunter
is being intuitive. But because of the way they constructed the character, because I think in the comics he is intuitive, because he's not super strength, super vision, and all of this other shit. Like, I think he does have like strength and all this, but he can't like, in this, it's like he's communicating with the animals.
He's communicating with animals. The eyesight thing
that was largely insignificant,
except for he could tell what kind of cigarettes somebody was smoking from 4 football.
Insignificant.
4 football fields away. He was like, that's a Turkish delight if I've ever seen one.
From the penthouse to the ground, he's like, yep. Got it.
Yep.
He's Turkish.
Yep. I figured it out. They didn't even have to do that because later they explained like he hears them speaking and knows where they're from. So you could have left the cigarette scene out altogether, which I was watching, maybe it was a Weekly Planet, and they talked about like the fact that they went and did reshoots for this movie because I think they determined it wasn't long enough. Like they just didn't have enough there. So they added stuff. They went back and added. And one scene that they pointed out that is incredibly silly when you think about it in retrospect, when he brings Calypso, terrible name, to his little hut, right? And she's walking around and like she's like, oh, this is like a whatever place, and she presses the button and all of the weapons come down, which is like another Arrow trope. Like granted, it's a million, like Batcave, whatever, but like you know, like it had very much like it had that feel to it, that Arrow like basement clubhouse thing going on. But then 5 minutes later, the weapons are back up and they have a threat coming to them, and he presses the button again, and they were like, you didn't have to show like you pick one or the other. And it seems like they were just like, well, we filmed both and we need to fill some time, so like let's throw both in there.
We talked about this when we were talking the other day too. It just felt like everything that should have been like a deleted scene or should have made it to the final cut felt like it just got thrown in to fill time.
How long was Venom 3?
I don't remember, but I can pull it up.
Like Venom 3 was only like an hour and 40 minutes, right?
That sounds about right.
Like
149. 1 hour 49.
Okay, so not that much. Like this movie was only like 10 minutes longer. This was like 157 or 158, I think, maybe. So not that much difference in time.
2 hours and 7 minutes.
Okay, so 25 minutes longer.
Yeah.
Like
18 minutes longer, but whatever.
But I guess my point, like, you don't need to make movies longer just to make them longer. Like, like who said that this movie had to be 2 hours long? Like, maybe you cut a villain out and you give me an hour and 35 and you just have a balls to the wall, because here's another standout positive for this movie: the action. I thought bumping this to rated R, if these fight scenes weren't as gratuitous as they are,
then it would have felt even goofier. Yeah.
This movie would, like, if they were doing PG-13 quick cut like action where you can't really see the violence of anything.
Yeah.
This movie is way worse.
Yeah.
I think.
I give you that.
I think the fact that they could actually focus in on the kills that he was doing significantly contributed to the quality of the movie. The animals thing, like, it's just not explained, and we haven't even talked about how he gets his powers. Like, it's so stupid. I fucking, like, that's another thing I hated. I rolled my eyes in the theater, and I already said we're not doing it. Like, I don't care. We're just doing spoilers. There's not going to be a separate section. So, or if you don't want this spoiled somehow, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, you know. Again, you would have seen it already. Him getting his powers, it's like, can we advance past like this version of how people get their powers? So first of all, he gets like a magic like health serum that is still never explained to us what it is. Like, he even tries to figure out what it is, and they can't just explain it. So there's that. Then in addition, like the blood from the lion that gets shot drips into him. When that happened, like, if they had have just had he died from the lion bites, and like the bite would have been where the DNA got into him. That was my thing. I'm like, okay, well, he got bit by the lion. She's going to give him, they set this up, like, she's going to give him the serum. Leave it there. Yeah. To do the extra drop that lands perfectly into this one hole on his chest.
Remind me, didn't the drop come from the lion's mouth?
Did it?
Because then wouldn't that have been already his blood? Or did it come from one of the bullet wounds on the lion? I can't remember.
I guess I don't remember now. For it to drip, it probably would have made sense that it dripped from his mouth, not from his chest. Because he got shot like 3 times, that lion.
But in the side.
The one was in the front, like in the chest area, I thought, because he was facing directly at it. Maybe I'm wrong. But either way, you just didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Like, the DNA was in him from the bite. Then combine that with him coming back to life from the thing. Also, doesn't he, like, she gives him that potion. He has to get flown all the way to the hospital. He then dies to then come back to life. But then he gets his ass kicked later, and maybe he wasn't as badly wounded, but like it was instant that the thing took on when he got.
So the other question I had, right, was they do the whole scene with the grandmother where she gives her the vial. Pointless fucking scene, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
She only gave her one vial, but she somehow had two because she left one in his pocket when she gave it to him, but then she still had one later.
Well, yeah, I guess she said she never saw her grandmother again, but like, there's nothing to say that she doesn't know how to make that, I guess, would be my only thing. Like,
There's nothing to say she does either.
I would be fine with that
Yeah.
issue in a better movie, but I get where like the movie's already bad, so like giving no context to it and like just kind of it's there for the plot to advance.
Yeah.
You know? But like I have to assume she knows how to make it. The thing, like, the cards don't come into play at any other time, right? In the movie.
Only when he gives it back to her.
Yeah, like that's another one where it's just like that whole scene, to your point, the grandmother scene, is literally just to establish her reason
for having that.
For having that and for saving him.
Yeah.
Like it all just lines up to like, and I guess she can see the cards are meant to like tell you your future, right? So like
I don't know if sense, I never looked it up if like Calypso is like a legit comic book character, but like
she is. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, okay, because they threw the name out there like it was supposed to be the most significant thing ever, and I just don't know it.
Oh, and I know the other thing that that's bothering a lot of people is they showed the woman in the plane, the helicopter or plane, whatever, like 3 different times,
but they never actually showed.
They never showed her face, and everybody's like, you were including her for a reason. And you were intentionally hiding her for like, you'd assume a reveal at some point. And especially now that I'm like thinking about it, the way the movie ends with this, like, because this is my other gripe before we end this review off. So where we're in some type of spoilers, there's, like I said, there's 4 villains, right? So you have Russell Crowe, you have the Rhino, you have the Foreigner, and then you have Chameleon, which is his brother, who throughout the movie is not a bit of a villain, but they've told you, mind you, prior to this movie coming out, that this franchise is done. That we're not going to see any more of these movies, that it's dead, it's in the fucking grave, we buried it, we'll never have to watch this again. But then they insist on ending with a setting up another villain.
Yeah.
So you set up the other villain, but you, like, if you were going to show me what you were planning to do if you got another one of these with the villain, why wouldn't you show who the face is of the pilot? Because then you, like, you know, if you're just going to roll out all these.
Yeah.
Also weird, like, it doesn't have a post-credit, but it basically has post-credits.
It's like 4 post-credits that they just rolled before the credits.
Because this could have also been a post-credit where, like, that girl finally gets up from her seat after dropping him off.
Yeah.
Like, he leaves New York and goes to get dropped back off at his place, gets dropped off by her, and that's when she turns around and everybody's like, oh, shit, like, that's whoever it might, you know?
Yeah.
And instead it's just there. It's like this faceless person
Yeah.
who is clearly like the only person part of his team.
Yep.
Up until the start of this movie was this girl. And we never see her once. You hear her talk once.
Yep.
At the very beginning of the movie, but you never see her. Like, that just seems so fucking stupid to me. I don't get it.
They never even established that relationship. She was just there.
Yeah. Yeah. And because then I was like, it's weird. There's not really a true like love interest in this movie, which you just assume in this kind of movie you would introduce some type of a love interest. So then you're left to say, if they were going to do a sequel, is it Calypso or
you
is
would think it would
girl?
be Calypso, but they never went anywhere with it.
No, because it could also be the girl that he's
on the plane with.
The plane with, right? Like, yeah, I don't know, not terrible. I believe I ended up giving it 2 stars.
That's where I left it too, yeah.
Which is better than Madam Web for my overall rating, but I don't know that I enjoyed this more than the viewing experience that I got from Madam Web. Yeah. Like, Madam Web had so many moments where you just like, and to your point, this is going to that idea of watching it with people. Madam Web to me had so many moments where you look at the person next to you.
Yeah.
Or like the theater could just laugh. You know? Like, it might not have been intentional, but the theater could laugh at it.
There was just way too many times where I was looking over at the people I was with, like, how ridiculous is this?
Yeah, I don't think that this one like had those like laughter moments necessarily to me the same way. Trying to
I think the funniest like what the fuck is this moment was that random scene with the rhino. I forget what he was doing. I think he had just like established Kraven's identity or something. And he's like standing there in the room and just lets out this weird like screech.
Yeah.
For like 3 seconds and then just keeps rolling like nothing happened. Nobody acknowledges it.
Which is not a character trait that's introduced in any other part of the movie.
Yeah, it's just like, why?
Okay, you want to do some comments from Letterboxd?
Let's see what we got.
Like I said, I had this. Actually, I'll give you my ranking really quickly too. I had this at 2 stars, and I put it in at number 85 on my list of 103 movies for the year.
I also put it at 2 stars, and it is at 82 out of my 101 movies.
Okay,
so yeah,
we're almost identical.
Yeah.
This is appropriate. A 1-star review from Noen. Terrible. Not even Aaron Taylor Johnson with his 6-pack could save. So just people still talking that. You thought the 6-pack wasn't important. Oh, here's another one from Kit Laser. I honestly thought the abs would save it, but they didn't even bust them bad motherfuckers out till it was almost over.
People were in it for the abs, huh?
I told you, people loved it. Oh, here's another one. Ellen Taylor Johnson has 15 abs. Alessandro Nivola, yeah, I was right. It makes the weirdest sound I've ever heard. There you go, Dante. That's your sound, I'm pretty sure. Christopher Abbott is in a little sweater, and I'm pretty sure Ariana DeBose is not even half real at times. Is not even real half the time. We need this. We need you, Sonyverse. Do not go gentle into the good night.
You know what? There's a really short review. This person, Mr. Locks, I'm sorry, gave it 4 stars.
Ooh.
And his review is 3 words long. It just says raw. Next question. It's like, no. I got plenty of questions. Where the fuck did you find enjoyment in this to give it 4 stars?
Well, I have a funny 1/2-star review from Series. Must be ovulating because I'm craving these nuts.
What the fuck?
It's tough when I don't pre-read these because I have a 2-star from Bitta. That just says, this is a long one, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I need to read some of it. No lube, no protection, all night, all day, from the kitchen floor to the toilet seat, from the dining room table to the bedroom, from the bathroom sink to the shower, from the front porch to the balcony, vertically, horizontally, quadratic, exponential.
Oh my God.
Logarithmic. While I grasp for air, scream and see the light. Missionary, cowgirl, reverse cowgirl, doggy, backwards, sideways, upside down, on the floor, in the bed, on the couch, on a chair, being carried against the wall, outside, in a train, on a plane, in the car, on a bicycle, on the bed of a truck, a trampoline, in a bouncy house, in a pool, bent over, in the basement, against the window, have the most toe-curling, back-arching, leg-shaking, dick-throbbing, fist-clenching, ear-ringing, mouth-drooling, ass-clenching, nose-sniffling, eye-watering, eye-rolling, hip-thrusting, earth-quaking, sheep-gripping, knuckles-cracking, jaw-dropping, hair-pulling, teeth-gritting, mind-boggling, soul-snatching, overstimulated, vile, sloppy, moan-inducing, heart-wrenching, spine-tingling, back-breaking, atrocious, gushy, creamy, beastly, lip-biting, gravity-defying, nail-biting, sweaty, feet-kicking, mind-blowing, body-shivering, orgasmic, bone-breaking, world-ending, black hole creating, universe destroying, devious, scrumptious, amazing, delightful, delectable, unbelievable, body numbing, bark worthy, can't walk, head nodding, soul evaporating, volcano erupting, sweat rolling, voice cracking, trembling, sheet soaked, hair drenched, flabbergasting, lip locking, skin peeling, eyelash removing, eye widening, pussy popping, nail scratching, back cuts, spectacular brain cell dissolving, hair ripping, show stopping, magnificent, unique, extraordinary, splendid, phenomenal, mouth foaming, heavenly awakening, devil's tango ever. Kraven could cause a nuclear bomb inside me, and I'd still ride.
Bro, I love that you just started with, I'm not going to read this whole thing, and then just couldn't stop. That was literally just one long run-on sentence with like 1,000 adjectives.
There was so many commas. A lot of it rhymed, which I really appreciate it. Like, I couldn't stop once I started.
That might be the thirstiest person on the planet.
They wrote a romance novel.
And you know what? Like, Aaron Taylor Johnson, if you see that, you need to get that, because that sounds like the best poom poom of your life.
Or it could be a guy.
You still might want to check it out.
Still could be the best poom poom. You're like, oh my God, dude, I don't know if I need to read another one. That was
that's the one to end it on. Jesus
that was
Christ.
Crazy. And an appropriate segue to your favorite game.
Oh no.
I'm gonna need you, before we get out of here, Dante, to MFK the 3 Sony films we got this year. We had Venom 3, we had Madam Web, we had Kraven the Hunter. MFK.
You know, I know you disagree with me, but I still think Venom 3 was my favorite of this year. So I'm going to marry that one.
Okay.
It's a failed marriage, but hey. Who am I fucking?
I think there's an obvious choice for fucking here.
Yeah. Guess I'm fucking Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was like, I said that, and then I was like, well, I just read a 2-minute soliloquy about fucking Aaron Taylor Johnson. So that could be the obvious one. I was thinking like the movie that featured Sydney Sweeney and Isabella Merced. And we know Dakota Johnson, 50 Shades, knows how to get down. Like, and I would much rather fuck Madam Web, the movie.
Yeah. Hey,
I don't know. I think if I don't do this game, but if I was to do this
game. I don't do this game. I just put you under.
Yeah. If I was to do this game, I think I would kill Venom, marry this movie, and I'd fuck Madam Web over and over again.
Over and over again?
Yeah.
Nah, you get one fuck.
No.
You talking about you get a marriage and a side bitch?
She's my side bitch.
Nah, that's breaking the rules of MFK.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Let us know out there. Is that breaking the rules? And who would you MFK? Venom 3, Madam Web, Kraven the Hunter. Do you have any of the similar feelings to that Letterboxd review that I read? Were there any adjectives that they missed? Because I can't imagine there was any. So. No. And give us your rating down below for the movie. Like, dislike, 5 stars, whatever you want to give it. Until next week, though, we'll see you. Make sure to drop that like, comment, share, and subscribe down below.
Thank you so much.
Peace.
Peace.
For those with good taste.
Once I started,
I could tell.
It was just so like you said, there's no period.
I ain't gonna lie. I was like, damn, I need somebody to talk about me like that.
Yeah. Shit, fuck this man.